Parents are lazy as fuck. That's why they send their kids to school in the first place. I don't want to teach you, bitch.
That got me thinking, does academia exist because society is lazy? I'll come back to that, but first, let me cook. If it's your first time here, welcome. I'm Xanthi, the feral academic, and welcome to the authentic academic movement where we are feral, honest, and anti-bullshit. In today's class, we are covering two Grammy award-winning musicians, Billie Eilish and Porter Robinson, who have never stepped into a university and are extremely successful. Obviously, their stories reveal everything about what's wrong with academia. First, Billie and her brother Finneas O'Connell. They were homeschooled by their parents who gave up their acting careers to support their kids' dreams in music, anything they wanted to do. The recession made it very difficult, but they made it work. The parents mentioned if Finneas wanted singing lessons, instead of paying the teacher, she would make food for the teacher. They bartered for gymnastic lessons for Billie, where the father had to do handyman work. And Billie's a horse girly, so she wanted to do horseback riding lessons. They could not afford it. Billie worked at the stable so she could pay for the lessons eventually. Finneas mentions how important homeschool was to explore all of this. He says directly, being homeschooled is all about self-discovery. It's something that I've really enjoyed and thrived under. I'm not at a high school where I have to base my self-worth off of what other people think of me. I have to think, what would I like to be doing? How would I like to be as a person? I don't know a lot about what it's like to be homeschooled, because I definitely grew up in the public school system. I've known many people who are homeschooled, and I know there's this weird stereotype where they're like, oh my gosh, homeschooled kids are odd. But then again, that's what they say about only children, and I'm an only child, so I don't know. Anyway, the mother, Maggie Baird, didn't homeschool Finneas and Billie because she was anti-education. She was pro-creativity, and their father, Patrick, was obviously also as well. They treated learning as something they could use in real life, practical, everyday knowledge use.
I learned how to do math by cooking with my mom and seeing how many halves are gonna make this amount. And I learned how to build shit from my dad. I learned shit in life. When you're sat down and somebody's shoving things in your throat, you're not going to want to eat them.
A conventional school system would have prevented all of this time for them to be able to pursue what they love. It is a relatable experience where when you're a kid or a teenager growing up, you're going to have your parents kind of drill into you that when you finish school, the goal is to go to university and get a job, and that's how it works. With Finneas, he says their parents were always open. If the arts is something that you're interested in pursuing, college is not the end-all strategy. In fact, it might be better to save the massive amount of money you might have to spend going to college and put that towards a career. Already having started a career, it seems unappealing to put an actual career on hold to go and train for a career. A lot of artists, as we've seen, have gone on to do this because they found success in entertainment or some kind of creative job. And they were like, well, this is what I really want to do. I have no desire to go to college anymore or university. But then it's like other cases where Natalie Portman went to university or Emma Watson went back to university. So everyone has different goals. But in this sense, we're going against the grain of academia. And ultimately, education does work for people. However, there's this overall idea that education should be something that serves the institution and not the person. And that's where the biggest problem is. And next up, we have the indubitably bae Porter Robinson. I stole that term from my friend Matt. Thank you for that. He is a musician, DJ, really blew up when he was so young, practically a preteen. He is known for working with Skrillex and all this stuff. I find him to be, like Billie, an artist that really just does what they want, even if it's against the grain or against expectations. With him, he was a self-taught musician as well. He wrote and produced music for 3 years in his bedroom before his parents even knew what he was up to. Typical childhood experience. On Christmas, he was just like, by the way, my music is being played in a German club. He was inspired to make music by manipulating video game sounds. I believe he said he put them on loop. He was literally 13. Can you imagine? He hasn't even hatched yet. It brought him so much joy that it didn't feel like work. He was just vibing. And his parents gave him a keyboard. His mom, Nancy, believed that boredom was important.
The answer that they always give is that we just let our kids be bored, and that was it. We never signed them up for a single piano lesson. You know, if they wanted to take the swim team, then we would do it. If they wanted to play soccer, we would do it. But the most important thing was just allowing them to be bored. And that's how, we would sort of stumble on our own interests. So the person who enjoys the walk will go further than the person who enjoys the destination.
Yes.
And
enjoy the journey, not the end result.
Boredom. This is something that we are lacking in today's society in general. I mean, it's the opposite, right? Look at this, watch this. Audience retention. Without boredom, you can't find creativity. She actively resisted filling his schedule with clubs, sports, college applications. She let him quit things that he didn't like. And this is completely opposite to what a lot of families do for their kids. And then Porter was asked to DJ as an underage minor. He told his dad and was like kind of concerned about that. And then the dad's like, well, okay, besides your age, what's the issue? His father, Nick, went and supported him, went to the club. Parents just kind of like make sure, safeguarding, make sure he's all right. This is a club full of drunk people. I think that's incredible that like these parents, his parents gave so much autonomy to him because this was something he loved. Any other parents would have been like, no, that's not realistic. No, why would you do that? That's this and that. Like they only see things in barriers. A lot of people only see things in barriers. And what does that teach our kids? What does that teach each other? Instead of being like, it's always why, instead of why not. 11th grade comes along. It's a very pressure-filled time where you're thinking about applying to university. With Porter, he made a deal with his parents. He applied to University of Northern Carolina, Chapel Hill, but his music career was, it was building. They said, okay, keep your grades up, make sure school's going well, keep the college option open, and we support your music 100%. And then meanwhile, during like 11th grade, he is flying to Norway and Sweden, played 250 shows, traveled even more, studying cultures and customs in every country, then was back in school by Tuesday. And then he deferred for a year, because who wouldn't? His dad was like, okay, it's obvious that this is what you've been doing and you've been practically learning without college. And at the same time, and I find this to be so valuable, is that his parents also prioritized his mental health. Remember, we are introduced to Porter, or Porter is introduced to the world when he's 13. That's a very vulnerable time. It's a vulnerable time for even an adult to be in the public eye, but even more so when you are a minor. When you are a teenager. The parents made sure they did not teach him to build his self-worth around external validation or external expectations of what society wants. And that is extremely, sadly rare and wonderful that they did that for him. Before Porter released his album Worlds, Nick, his father, asked, hey, Porter, what would success look like to you? He said, if there was only like 10 to 15 people who heard the music, I'd be fine with that. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And he also doesn't do this and talk like that. They didn't say, you have to make #1 on the radio. You have to win a Grammy. It's all about internal joy. Another thing I admire about his parents is that when he was 12, he was like, can I just stop going to church? And they were like, sure. To me, that's astounding because religion is such a big thing, but it's like, oh, they trusted a 12-year-old that he knew what he wanted and it was what he wanted and he can change his mind if he wanted to. And I think that's the attitude that we need to give young people. Treat people with respect. Like kids are still people and they deserve respect. Both Billie and Porter are neurodivergent. They've publicly spoken about this. Billie has Tourette's and Porter has OCD and ADHD and are enormously successful. Both were given the space to dive into their creativity and who they were without any pushback from their family. A space to be themselves, which schools and academia seems to do the opposite of. But I bring this up because I had spoken to a psychiatrist who was like, neurodivergent people cannot succeed in university. They cannot succeed because they can't focus. Really? Take that. To recap on the Porter, Billie, Finneas conversation, their parents played a large role in supporting this outside the box mentality of like, just explore what you want to do. An alternative education system, or support system rather, because Porter did go to school. Finneas and Billie were homeschooled, but both of them had very supportive parents that prioritized their mental health, their agency, and their dreams. And both of these families made a choice to honor what their kids wanted in a society that doesn't accommodate such. The trust that they had in their kids gave the kids trust in themselves. And look at where they are now. Speaking of trust or lack thereof, you may have heard about Yale University. Yale University President Maury McInnes formed a committee to ask, why is the public losing trust in higher education? One of the largest institutions in the world is asking why students don't trust higher education anymore. Like, sheesh, I wonder why. Yale admitted self-censorship and political bias as eroding that trust. Universities are not on our side. They are until you pay the tuition. Once you pay the tuition, they gotcha. They take our energy, they take our mental health, and then they give us the bill. It's giving Boulevard of Broken Dreams by Green Day. No jobs, no guaranteed success, just debt and depression. I've been reading your comments, and so many of them are about how everyone feels the university system is so broken and it needs reform and change. I had come across some people who decided to go elsewhere, because that's the big question, right? What do we do if we choose a different path? What if we don't go the path that we're expected to go to academia? There's a few here that I found online. If you want to read more, I'll link the forum post. There's one person here that said, UK workers who never went to university. One person walked out of school at age 15 with no GCSEs. 19 years later, they're pulling in 120,000 pounds. Another whose most successful friend started in an insurance call center, worked up to 100,000 pounds. Another did an apprenticeship. They said they didn't care for university. Real experience, no debt, no time lost. These are not exceptions. These are people who knew the system wasn't working and they didn't waste their time. And it can be so discouraging. You go to university because you want to better yourself and your career chances. It reminds me of a friend who was like, oh my God, I have a bachelor's and a master's. Why am I working at a job where I'm serving people coffee? And two of my friends, they just got their PhDs and neither of them want to continue academia. They don't even want to continue the subject that they researched in. It can really suck the life out of you. It killed their spark. So sad. I recognize that not everyone is going to become a Billie Eilish or a Porter Robinson. They also had their own privilege, because families that support you is a very underrated privilege. And not everyone has that. And a brother who would make music with her. School exists because not everyone has supportive parents. What that says about access and who gets to opt out, even not available to everyone. And we recognize that. The system is broken. Not everyone can get their way out of it. It's not a defense, the school system or the academic system. It can be a trap. When I think about my own upbringing and how I got to do my PhD, it's like most of the careers, actually all of the careers that I've wanted since I was a kid. I wanted to be a cartoonist, and then I wanted to be a musician, and then I wanted to be a photographer, and then I wanted to be a filmmaker. Like, they've all been creative fields. My family is very Filipino, and college is a huge deal. University is a huge deal in our culture. But I feel I was lucky in the sense that they were also very supportive of what I loved. Most Filipino families would kind of force their kids to find a job in nursing or anything medical, really. Like, you're either a nurse, a lawyer, or a doctor. And technically, I am pursuing a doctorate. So I was lucky in that sense, where it was like, yes, they really drilled the idea of university in me, but they also gave me the freedom to explore what I wanted. And they gave me that boredom. That's how I got to where I am. If you're in a place where you don't have that support system, it's a bit more challenging, but it doesn't mean you'll not get there. It's just probably going to take more time, or maybe it won't. Maybe you're extremely sure in what you want to do. And that's amazing. Everyone's journey is different. I would say just don't place so much pressure on yourself. If you love education and you want to go to university, sure. Just know what you're signing up for. I'm sorry to sound so negative, but I just want to be real. Universities will never be real with you, because when you go to those tours, when you go to those marketing folks, they're going to make the university look like a dream, because that's what they're selling. So you can buy it. Literally. So be careful. Actually, I forgot to mention, I saw Billie Eilish and James Cameron's documentary about her Hard and Soft tour. I was very impressed. Honestly, she co-directed a film with James Cameron, has all these ideas that she does not hesitate on. Billie is so environmentally conscious. She's really big on sustainability. What I loved was that she said whenever they tour somewhere, they try to find like a dog rescue, and then they bring the dogs to the show so fans can adopt them. Like, that's an incredible use of fame, using your fame for good. That's why I think she's really, really resonating with people, making mental health less of a stigma. She talked about the way she dresses and the expectations of what girls are supposed to look like. I think she's going to be offered an honorary doctorate. It would be iconic if she says no. I just see her doing that. A university being like, oh my gosh, Billie Eilish, we want to give you a PhD for all of the contributions you've made in the world. And then she'll be like,
Bitch.
that would be so funny. And we'd respect that so much more than her accepting it. But honestly, I mean, if she wanted to accept it, she could anyway, too. Billie's an example of huge success, but it's the principle that she stands for, that your worth and intelligence aren't defined by a degree. And that matters whether you're a Grammy winner or university student. Back to the beginning. I'm back in Chicago. Back to the original question. Does academia exist because society is lazy? First of all, I want to say that knowledge is powerful. Academia is not the same thing. When I say the idea of that academia exists because society is lazy, it's because we're constantly being trained to conform ever since we enter school, ever since we step foot into the kindergarten. When we stray from what people are comfortable with and what they want to mold us into, we're punished. And that starts immediately when we are children, up until now when we're adults. I know that I'm part of the problem. I'm literally a PhD student. I live inside of the academic machine that I am criticizing. It's given me a lot of opportunities. However, it's broken me a lot in other ways. But the real issue is how often we mold ourselves to fit a system that was never built to prioritize us. We need to make choices that serve us and not the institution and not society's expectations. Academia may have started as something really wonderful back then, a gift, a path to follow. But for so many years now, it's starting to feel like they're making fools of us for still believing that a degree is going to promise a future. Let me know what you think. Agree? Disagree? Leave a comment below. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to keep in touch, or hit like. It sincerely helps a lot. I hope you have a beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening. I am sending you love, hugs, and legal drugs. See you in the next video.